Coming to you live from the Interaction Media Studio in Morgantown. Welcome to Positively, West Virginia. I'm your host, Jim Matuga. Today, we're going to visit with Andrew Rice. Andrew is the owner of Sky Forge Metalworks, located in Albright, West Virginia. Of course, that's in Preston County, West Virginia. But first, a little about our mission here at Positively, West Virginia. Every week, we talk with West Virginia business leaders and share their success stories with people just like you in West Virginia and across the country. When we first started this podcast project back in 2017, one of the things we set out to do was to encourage and inspire our listeners with positive business stories from right here in the Mountain State. To date, we've produced more than 200 episodes, and Positively West Virginia is now a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You can learn more about our mission of promoting small businesses and entrepreneurship in West Virginia at positivelywv.com. You know, I get to see so many positive things happening in West Virginia business every day that a lot of people never get to hear about, quite frankly. So my team at Interaction Media is now working to change that with this show so that people realize you don't have to leave West Virginia to find great business opportunities. They're right here in our state. We want to encourage people to stay here and build great companies and organizations right here in West Virginia. All of our guests are people who are actually getting that done day in and day out. And I'm convinced we could all learn from their experiences and, most importantly, their stories. Once again, our guest is Andrew Rice. Andrew is the owner of Sky Forge Metalworks in Albright, West Virginia. Andrew, thanks for being on the show today, man.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you on the podcast. So I just got to know Andrew a little bit right before we got on the call. And I actually, as it turns out, I know his dad, and we worked together years ago. But anyway, Sky Forge Metalworks has brought an element of creativity to homes and businesses in the area since 2014. Owner Andrew Rice knew the moment he took his first class in blacksmithing that it brought something to his life that was missing before. Andrew fell in love with the romance of this age-old artistry, the trade of blacksmithing, and the story it brings to every home and business he touches. There aren't many true blacksmiths left in the modern world, but Andrew has managed to balance the age-old art with the challenges of the 21st century. I invited Andrew on the show today to talk about his company, to share his story, and to give our audience some valuable insight into the company he owns right here in Preston County, West Virginia. Andrew, take a minute, fill in some gaps from that very brief intro that I gave, and give us a little behind the curtain look into your company, Sky Forge Metalworks.
Well, I mean, basically, I graduated from WVU with a physics degree, and there really wasn't any work. I was in graduate school, and my ex-in-laws bought me a forging class. And the first time I hit the hot steel, it just felt like I had done it in another life. So, I went home and my wife at the time, and we decided to start a business. And I mentored under another blacksmith from Kingwood for a little while, and then just kept chugging on my own way.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So first of all, before I dig deeper into that, what is the 30-second pitch that you have for Sky Forge Metalworks? In other words, what is it you tell people that you do? Obviously, you're a blacksmith, but when people say, "What do you do for a living?" What do you tell them?
Well, I just met a guy at the steel yard this morning, and I'm wearing my shirt, and he said, "What does Skyforge Metalworks do?" And I said, "I'm an artist blacksmith." Well, what's that mean? Anything to do with metal. So, the overarching quality of the blacksmith is, you're masters of steel. So, and that goes through other alloys as well. So people come to me with brass work and chrome, plating. I mean, people just want anything to do with metal. They come to me for something custom.
Yeah, that's super cool. So you say you took a blacksmithing class, and I think that's a neat thing. You were just on fire from the moment your hammer struck that piece of steel, right? Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about how did you get into this class, and where, well, first of all, where was the class?
The class was at Arthurdale Heritage in
Yeah,
Arthurdale.
of course. Yeah.
Um, it just felt very natural. I mean, forging is a very romantic thing. I mean, you're using elements to create something. We're using the iron from the earth and the coal or the charcoal, or nowadays we use some propane and natural gas as well in the forges. But it's like this very primal feeling that you get to create something out of literally almost nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
the steel just comes in bars and you have to shape it to what you want.
Yeah.
The only thing you need to do that with is some fire and a hammer.
Yeah. And a nice anvil, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, nice anvils are great, but you don't need a nice one to get things done. But yeah,
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
I mean, think of any other profession. I mean, just take a welder for example. They need a welder. They need saws to cut things with. They need X, Y, and Z tools. The blacksmith just needs something to hit on and something to hit with.
Yeah. That's super cool. So one of the things I'm always intrigued about watching, and you had a really wonderful video on your website. And we'll talk about your website here a little bit later, but there was a picture, and it was you like striking, a piece of metal that's come out of the forge, and you're striking that thing, and sparks are flying, and like it looks like big chunks of metal are flying off. What is that? Is that like ash, or is that the actual steel, or what actually is that?
Well, those are like the hero shots that the videographers want to do, and they did a great job as well. So what that actually is that's called forge welding or fire welding. So what happens in that process is, we put the steel or the iron in the fire and heat it to where it's melting, but it's still solid. So, there's a certain temperature range there. If you leave it in too long, it'll just puddle up and, just like you're smelting the iron. But if you get it just right, you can use pressure from the hammer and the anvil and forge weld those pieces together.
Wow, that's
That
pretty cool.
all of those sparks and everything, that's iron, and then slag, impurities that are in between the gaps. And, the pressure is forcing all that out and getting these two molten layers pushed together to where they combine and stick.
So it's interesting just listening to you talk about this, because you have a degree in physics from the West Virginia University.
Yes.
It sounds like there's a lot of science behind blacksmithing, and I mean that's how it comes across. I mean, is that kind of a neat thing to have that degree in physics to do the kind of work you're doing? I mean, it's just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I do teach. People often want me to teach, so I try and fill in some dead spaces with teaching. It's nice to have that knowledge and to be able to tell people this is what is actually happening, but it's not necessary knowledge either. I mean, forging is kind of like this black box. So, we want to get to a final product and we have the tools. So then we kind of, all I really need to know with forge welding is if I heat it up to this temperature, if it looks this color, I can forge weld these two pieces together.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit about, Andrew, the apprenticeship that you kind of talked a little bit about. You worked with a mentor there in Preston County, and then what other kind of experience or apprenticeships did you have to go through to become a blacksmith?
Well, I mean, there's no licensing agency to do this. I mean, there kind of is, but if you're a welder, for example, and you want to go weld on a bridge, you need to go get certified to do that. We don't have to do any of that stuff. I mean, what would you certify?
Yeah.
So, I mentored under Roger and Kingwood for some time and learned what I needed to learn to move forward. And then once I really dug deep into it, I went and did an artist residency with Albert Paley, a world-renowned metal artist up in Rochester, New York. And it was there where I really understood that it doesn't, your skills and your knowledge of this craft really don't matter, because the techniques and all of the stuff that blacksmiths used for years and years and years, we've lost so much of that.
Yeah.
So you really have to get good at deconstructing things. So you need to, like a railing, for example, I have to draw it first before I can understand how to build it or how to forge it. And
Mm.
then you kind of have to work backwards to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. So you talk about railings, and it appears from your website that you do a lot of like custom, steel, iron railings for residential and business works. Talk a little bit about that and that side of your business and how important that is to you.
Well, when I started out, I was just going around to stores and selling hooks and coat racks and things like that, little household goods.
Uh-huh.
I was doing trade shows and everything else, and I didn't make any money. So years went by, and I just kept practicing on my skills and making small items, some furniture here and there and whatnot. And then I got asked to do a railing. Well, I don't like railings. I don't like doing them. But if you're in a metalworking business, you probably should take in business that has to do with metalworking. So
Lesson number one.
yeah, so I still carry that lesson with me today. But I just did a railing, and I installed that one, and they just kept coming. So my business really took off in that direction, more architectural ornamental ironwork instead of like bespoke goods or home goods, things of that nature.
Mhm.
Um,
Fascinating. Well,
yeah,
I mean,
it's been really tricky.
we think about like a railing, and like you could build something out of like a deck railing, right? It's going to be typically like a 2x4 that you rip, and you make some slats and some rails and whatnot. But if you want that timeless wrought iron look, I'm calling it wrought iron. It's probably the wrong word, but that black, heavy is going to be there for 200 years. Where do you buy that? You don't go to the big box store and buy that. You have to go to a blacksmith like you yourself, right? And kind of have it custom made, right?
Yeah, I mean, the steel comes in 20-foot bars.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
you're not cutting that with a table saw.
yeah, so you literally have to make everything custom. I mean, there's no standard product that comes out of my studio. Um, you could go to a fabrication shop in Morgantown. There's several of them, and they'll build you a railing. But most of the time, they're the balusters and things like that are ordered from catalogs, and they're made overseas, and they're just run through machines, and they do give you a kind of look that you might want. And some clients like that, but the clients that I get, they want a story behind what they're getting as well.
Mm. Yeah, talk
You know,
talk a little bit about that. Give us an example of how that works.
well, I'll give you a really good example. So last 2 years ago in the winter, I was cold calling people in DC and got a hold of a contractor and got to go and look at a restaurant to forge a custom railing. And I got hooked up with this designer that had won international awards. And this railing was very intricate and complicated and way above my skill level, and I didn't want to do it. So they asked me for a price while I was there, and I just thought, I just want to give them a price that if they take it, I'll make myself do it. If they say no, then great, I'm out of the job. Well, I gave them a price, and they took it, and I could not understand why they agreed to such a high price. Um, and the designer started explaining to me, hey, this railing has to tell a story when someone looks at it. So that railing's on my site. It's the Nara Ya railing, and like the story behind it was some, somewhere in feudal Japan years ago, there was a farmer that was walking through the woods and just picked up things and made a railing at his house. So I started to understand from that job that people, they may not have enough money to buy like a Van Gogh and hang in their house, but when someone compliments their railing, they want to tell them where it came from.
Wow.
So there's kind of like this, as forging as romantic as it is, there's also this thing like this guy in the woods of West Virginia who's a blacksmith, artist made this and came and put it in.
Yeah, that's incredible. Now, I mean, from your perspective as a business owner, as an artist, right, as an artisan blacksmith, I believe I'm using those two words, correctly, right? Because I mean, your work is beautiful. Uh, how does that make you feel as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, to say, "Oh yeah, if you want to, if you're ever in DC, check out this restaurant and go, go check out the railing. I actually created that."
I don't really tell people that too much. I mean, if people are prodding and asking questions, then I'll tell them that. But
Sure.
to me, um, the memories that I have of that railing are not, seeing the finished product and being proud of it. The memories are all the lessons that I learned to learn everything I had to do to get it done.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going with the work. The challenges, the figuring out how to build these things, figuring out the techniques to forge what I want. Um, so to me, like that railing, yeah, it was beautiful after it was done, but as soon as I left the restaurant, it's on to the next one.
Very.
So, the work has all of me in it. It's impossible for the work not to have Andrew Rice inside of it because I did everything.
Yeah.
So I just let it speak for itself.
Yeah. So it's art, but it's also functional, right? It serves a purpose. It keeps people from falling off their balcony or being
Yeah,
able to get
I
up the
mean it's
steps safely and everything like that too. Andrew, what would you say is the thing that you're most excited about for your company, Sky Forge Metalworks, right now?
um I've really been liking that the work's been coming in without me having to market.
Mm,
After 7 years of marketing, that's been a really huge change. That I mean, just when I was emailing you before the show, I got an email from another designer for some tables, and I quoted it out right before we started.
yeah.
So, this unsoliciting is something new, and I just hope it continues.
Yeah, well, I think in any stage of a business, you hit that point, where in some it's sooner, rather than later. Some others it takes years and years and years, and it sounds like you're at that point where it's a critical point where you're you have a reputation now, and you're known, right? Your people know who Andrew Rice is and who Sky Forge Metalworks is, and that makes it easier. It's not so much the grind of like, where's my next job coming from, but you're starting to get that reputation, that almost that inbound referral and other sources coming in.
Yeah, well, I mean, the mentality that I have, since since I didn't hardly make any money for years at it, is you're always one job away. So you're either one job away from being rich, or you're one job away from having to fast because you can't afford food.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. What's the geographic area that you serve, Andrew? In other words, where are your customers coming from?
So I've done work from Maine to Florida. So primarily the East Coast. 90% of my work comes from the DC metro area,
Really?
surrounding Virginia and Maryland areas there. Um, yeah, and as for classes, I've had people travel from Louisiana and Colorado, and they come up and they rent a hotel room and stay for a couple days.
Really? And you teach them the art of blacksmithing.
Yes.
Super cool. Super cool. Uh, so I want to ask you. I always ask every guest on this show to talk about your best moment that you've been since you've had your company in 2014. What's your best business moment?
Well, my best moment was really that Nara Ya railing, um, because I asked for a price that didn't just include labor; it included my knowledge and what we like to call artistic license.
Yes.
So and it's a really good feeling when you get paid that kind of money. However, what a lot of people don't think about is what that kind of money entails. So that job was extremely stressful and everything else under the sun. I mean, it was a really bad job to be on, but we got it done.
How long did that project take you?
I mean, with the delays and everything else, it took over a year.
Wow, that's incredible.
The actual build was about 30 days.
Wow.
So, so while it was big dollars, over a year, those big dollars don't amount to very much when it comes to your income.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So if you could, I'm going to flip the switch on you on this one and ask about your worst business moment. Take us to that place of your worst business moment so far since 2014.
My worst business moment was probably when I got divorced. Um, I wasn't making any money. I wasn't contributing to the family at all,
Mm,
and I didn't think I was being lazy about it. I had an attitude that if you just work hard and you just keep going, that things will come to fruition. And I mean, they did. But when I got divorced, I quit the business for about a month, and then I just decided, look, everything's set up. Like if you're going to do this, you just need to do it.
mm.
And that switch in your mind, when you fully commit, no matter what, I mean, I didn't have any income, and I had all these bills to pay now. So
Mm.
when you fully commit that you're gonna do it, or you're gonna just be homeless, I mean, it really changes the direction of your business.
It was definitely a sink or swim moment.
Yeah, I mean, since it's my profession, you're holding yourself to the flames.
Yeah, literally in the forge.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get, first of all, I appreciate you sharing that. That's a very personal experience, and I appreciate that and that takeaway that you gave. And Andrew, I want to take a second just to mention the sponsors that we have for Positively West Virginia, and they include the State Journal, WVNews.com, and Interaction Media. The support we receive from these West Virginia companies allow us to highlight the incredible things happening throughout the great state of West Virginia. Our guest today, once again, is Andrew Rice. Andrew is the owner of Sky Forge Metalworks, and he's based in Albright, West Virginia. He's a West Virginia young man born and raised over in Brewston Mills, West Virginia, in Preston County. Andrew, I've been enjoying our conversation so far, and I'm just really thrilled to have you on the show today. Talk a little bit about what the vision is for your company long term. Where do you see this going?
Well, that's really difficult. I mean, I'm not sure. Right now, the current goal, with Frank's help over at Forge Business Solution, is opening up another shop. So, if 90% of your work is coming from 3.5 hours away, it kind of makes sense to open up a satellite shop. But the difficult part is finding people who have the drive to do it. So,
You're talking about like employees, basically, to grow.
yeah, I need somebody else like me at that shop full time.
Yeah.
I can't be here and be there. So, the logistics and money and all of this, getting a loan or X, Y, and Z, those are all problems that are really easily solved. But getting someone that you can trust who's going to give the same kind of customer service and deal with the headaches and all of that, and still be a trooper and move through it, those people are difficult to find.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Andrew, I want to take a few more seconds to, because I was thinking about just listening to what you're talking about in terms of the labor of this. When you do like a railing or a big ornate gate or something of that nature, when you do this work, do you install it also? Do you, in other words, you fabricate it, you create the concept, you draw it out, you use your physics degree and all these different things and your experience and your training and the artisanal license, the artistic license that you talked about. Now, do you go on site and do you weld these things up? As how does that all work?
Yeah, I mean, basically the process is somebody wants a railing done, so I drive to their house and or the restaurant or business, whatever,
Mhm.
measure it roughly, give them a rough quote. If they agree to it, I go back and take very detailed measurements. I draw it up in 3D.
Mhm.
They approve it, I build it, and then I schedule for install.
Wow.
So you don't just have to know how to do everything in your studio to get the job done. I mean, you have to know how to get it done safely and right, and to be long lasting on site as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, I guess, you're a guy who grew up in West Virginia, Brewston Mills. You went to WVU, got a degree in physics. You started your own company. Now, did you go to, in other words, did you start this company right out of school, or did you work another job, or did you have another career path?
I used to be a industrial electrician working in the mines a lot.
Mhm.
Um, you know, that kind of just got boring. So, I mean, yeah, pretty much I was in graduate school and we had a little girl and I just decided that I needed to work to make money for the family and there wasn't really anything that was jumping out. So, we just said, hey, let's give this 3 years and run with it.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
So you kind of created your own path. And I think that's an incredible thing because, one of the things that we talk about on Positively West Virginia since 2017 is we want to encourage people just like yourself, born and raised here, to stay here in West Virginia, right? And can you build a company, a sustainable company right here, even if it is a one person shop, like an artisanal blacksmith shop, like you're doing, and building these amazing products, and having customers all over the East Coast. I think that's an incredible story right there in itself. I think that's awesome, and my hat's off to you. I would like to know, from your perspective, what's one piece of advice you would give to young people out there who may be listening to this saying, I would like to get a job in the trades potentially, because blacksmithing is a trade. It's an ancient trade, but it's a trade nonetheless. I want to get a job in the trades. Maybe I go to get a degree, but I really want to work with my hands. I want to be an artist. I want to do something where I can just own my own job and just have my own company. What's one piece of advice you would give them?
Just keep moving. I mean, you don't have to have a good education to start out. I mean, you just have to have the drive that you just keep moving. You know, at any point in time, if I stop, things stop with it. You have to. I think life will bring things to you as long as you work on yourself to make yourself a better person. People want to be around happy people. People want to be around nice people, kind people that treat them right. They really want to do business with people that treat them right.
Yeah.
So if you work on yourself first and make that commitment, and then you just keep moving, there's with my business, there's no blueprint.
Yeah.
I tried companies. There's no blueprint to market. There's no blueprint of how to quote it. There's none of this stuff. So, find something that you're at least 90% passionate about because the passion is going to go away once you have to start dealing with people.
Yeah. That's a
So you just keep the momentum going. You just keep moving.
Yeah. What's one thing that you do every day that you think contributes to your success?
The first thing I do when I wake up at 4:30 in the morning is I work out. And then I make sure that my day is like secure. I have the food that I want to eat for that day. I get work with my body in. I journal in the morning to get stress off my mind.
Yeah.
You want to for me, taking care of myself first is really key. You can't take care of the business. It's like a kid. You
Yeah.
can't take care of it if you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
I can't take care of clients if I'm not taking care of myself. So, just doing these more personal things, people just naturally they gravitate towards you.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's good stuff. I appreciate your perspective on that as well. Andrew, what's one book or even a podcast that you would recommend for aspiring entrepreneurs or business owners?
Oh, that's easy. You should write your own book, and you should do your own podcast. When people ask, you should tell them what you're doing.
Yeah. Uh,
And you really should just write your own book. You should write every day and figure out what problems you're having, and you know in a month you can go back through and read through those problems. You
mm,
have to find a way to track progress.
so good.
You can't take data from an experiment if you don't write it down. So, of course you could listen to Positively West Virginia,
Yeah.
but people want to know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff. It reminds me, you're talking about what you just said there about writing it down, write your own book. You talked about your own journaling habit of doing that each day. And it reminds me of a story of a person who gave another person a gift, and it was a book, and it was called the best book ever written. It was the title of the book, and you open it up, it was just blank pages, and it was a journal.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's really cool insight, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. Andrew, I want to give you an opportunity to talk. Obviously we've covered a lot in this interview in a half an hour. I'm curious to know if there's anything else you think our listeners should know about you or your story.
I mean, I'm just here getting after it every day. I mean, if someone wants to, I do vet students who want to take classes. People, my time, I really respect my time. So I think more people need to do more of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think just exactly what I said, you just got to get up and you just got to keep moving. So that's what I'm doing. Tomorrow, if 90% of my work is furniture, well, I work with metal, and if there's metal in the furniture, Andrew's going to do it. So we just keep moving forward with whatever, any opportunity we go through the door.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. Andrew, I want to, as we close out our time here, I want you to give yourself an opportunity to promote how our listeners can learn more about Sky Forge Metalworks and perhaps even get in contact with you for those classes or maybe some advice.
Yeah, well, the best way to do any of that is through the contact page on my website, skyforgemetalworks.com. And that's about it. You can get on there and read about me and watch the video and, see a lot of the railings that I've done,
Yeah.
and email me with any questions or, anything really.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to encourage folks to check out the gallery section. I mean, you just do some amazing metal work. It's incredible. Very, you are a person of many talents. I can tell, right? Just from the vision and the execution and the way you can, literally take a piece of 20-foot bar of steel and make it into some of the artwork that you're doing and these custom railings and other things that you're doing. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Andrew, uh, as we close out, I just want to say it's been a real honor to get to know you. As I mentioned in the intro there, I used to work with your dad, and it was kind of neat just as we were preparing to get on the air here to learn that fact. And obviously, he's raised he and your mom have raised an amazing young man. I think what you're doing is fantastic with Sky Forge Metalworks and your blacksmithing and keeping this almost this lost art alive here in West Virginia. I think blacksmithing is a very cool thing, and I just want to encourage you to keep up the great work, man.
I will be after it for sure.
All right, and there's no doubt in my mind. Well, folks, that's a wrap on another episode of Positively West Virginia. Positively West Virginia is brought to you by the State Journal, WVNews.com, and Interaction Media. As we continue on our journey to help share positive stories of companies and people doing amazing things all across the Mountain State, just like my friend Andrew Rice of Sky Forge Metalworks in Albright, West Virginia. Our hope is that we, in some way, equipped you and inspired you with his business story. If you or someone you know would be a great guest on the show, drop us a line on our website, positivelywv.com, and we appreciate all of your comments and encouragement. The reviews that you guys leave us on iTunes and all the other podcast platforms are great, and we really appreciate that as well. And of course, we encourage you to share these stories on your social media channels as well. And be sure to check out our weekly show, The Small Business Mastermind, presented by Positively West Virginia every Friday from 11 a.m. to noon, where we bring a panel of business experts from around the state of West Virginia to help small business leaders win. Positively West Virginia is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You can learn more about our mission of advancing small business and entrepreneurship in West Virginia at positivelywv.com. On behalf of our entire Positively West Virginia team, until next time, I'm your host, Jim Matuga. Stay positive, West Virginia.